Hey everybody, welcome back to Gideon Stuff, and welcome to Cheap Knife Week. Before we get into this video, I want to talk a little bit about Cheap Knife Week. This is an idea I had a while ago, and I talked about it in a video a long time ago, but we're going to take some time to introduce what Cheap Knife Week is all about. So if you're watching this video, chances are you're probably a knife enthusiast, you're probably in the knife hobby, you probably collect pocket knives, or you're an enthusiast who really enjoys using knives. But there's a group of people who need knives every day, but they're not knife enthusiasts. An example of a person like this would be my grandpa. I know my grandpa really well. And he uses a pocket knife until it falls apart, and then he throws it away, and he goes to the hardware store or the feed store or something, and he buys a new pocket knife, and the cycle continues. He doesn't know, really, what makes a good knife or a bad knife, but he's someone who needs a pocket knife in his life. A lot of people in my family are like that. I used to be like that. Grew up on a ranch, and you always need to have a good pocket knife. But I would just use them till they broke and fell apart, and then I'd throw them away and go and buy another cheap knife. And so there's a lot of people like this who realize that they need a knife, but they're not going to go online and order one from Blade HQ or Knife Center or White Mountain Knives or whatever. And they're not going to walk into a Cabela's or something and then go and buy a $260 ZT. No. They're going to go to Tractor Supply or Big Five or somewhere like that, and they're going to buy a cheap knife. And so what I have done is I have gone to some of these stores and I have bought 5 cheap knives. They're all pretty different, but we're going to be, well, I've already done the testing and carrying, and we're going to be taking a look at them in these videos, reviewing them, and seeing what is out there for people who are not knife enthusiasts but need a knife. Can they get good stuff? So I tried to keep the budget for these under $30. I think that's a pretty reasonable thing, and especially a lot of places where I was buying these knives, I came in well under $30. So let's go ahead and get started with this knife here. This is the Schrade SCH306 Ultra Glide Flipper knife. That's the only name I could find for this knife. If anyone knows if it has another name, let me know. I actually did not buy this knife in a store. I ordered it online from Knife Center, and that was because 814 EDC gave one to Lefty EDC, and I saw it, and I thought it was goofy, so I bought it. But I did see this for sale in, I think it was a Tractor Supply, and I was like, oh, awesome. I'm going to go ahead and throw that into Cheap Knife Week. I bought this for, I think I got this off Knife Center at the time for $12. I know they have them on there now for about $14. Amazon has these for $31. Don't do that. And then the store I saw it for sale at had it for $9. So let's go ahead and get started with this review. I've rambled on long enough. Where is my ruler so I can take blade length measurements? There it is. All right, so we have a blade coming in, yikes, at about 3.5 inches on the dot. So definitely a full-size knife. Do our size comparisons. Where are my Civivis? There they are. I haven't filmed a review in a while. All my stuff is all over the place. Been really busy with life. But there we go against the Praxis and the Elementum. Very nice, very nice. Stealing Bees Blades catchphrase. Let's get our rats. There's the one. And here's R2D2. Very nice. And then, let's grab our bug out. And the PM2. There you go, there you go. And that's all the size comparisons will do for now. So what are we looking at here in terms of materials? So this blade, I would call this a clip point. You have like this straight clip right here. So you have this straight clip point blade of 9CR18 MOV. So that's the same steel as on Civivi Praxis. That's a pretty good steel. I'm a big fan of 9CR. We have this satin finish here, which is very smudgy. The scales are aluminum over steel liners. It is a liner lock. And we have a steel pocket clip. Tip up, right hand only. The knife is running on bearings. We have thumb stud and flipper opening. So let's go ahead and jump on over to the cutting footage. I'm scared to pick up this knife. Yep. Woo. Okay, so. Why did I leave you sitting in the back of my truck while I was doing the other filming? It's 100 degrees out here, but there's a cloud over the sun right now, so. Youch, you are really, really hot. And not in the I want to take you home type of way, but in the ouch, my skin is going to send me to the hospital type of way. Okay. This is the Schrade SCH306, as it says there on the blade. Interesting knife. Aluminum scales that... Let's talk about the ergonomics. When the knife is not burning you to the bone, it's getting better, it's cooling off. The ergonomics are actually not bad. It's a pretty thick knife, and if you guys know me in the channel, you know that I like thick knives because very hand-filling. If, you know, very hand-filling grip. The shape here is good. Yeah, the ergonomics are nice. The pocket clip, little bug or something. The pocket clip is a little bit of a hot spot. It's digging in a little bit, but not the worst thing ever. The action, you have a flipper and thumb studs. The thumb stud action, that's nice. Those thumb studs work excellently. The knife is running on bearings, and the flipper tab, the flipping action isn't the best. But I don't think that's the fault of the detent necessarily. I think this knife would be a much better flipper if the flipper tab wasn't so small and weirdly angled and there's no jimping and it's just not a very good flipper tab. You can get it, but you have to kind of think about it. Yeah. The thumb studs, much better way to go. When I was carrying this knife, thumb studs are what I went with every time. How does it carry? Well, let's go ahead and tilt down here to the nether regions. The clip actually works really well. It kind of reminds me of the clip that CGRB uses. Actually, with this really thin part there between the screw holes, it kind of reminds me of the Artisan Apache. Or was it the Jungle? I think it was the Jungle that I had loaned in a little bit ago. Kind of reminds me of that clip. The clip is recessed into the scales, even though the screws are button screws. They were this close, but the clip itself, it works great. In and out of the pocket is really nice. The aluminum gives it a good thing to slide on. It is a little bit heavy. It's a little bit chunky. Some people aren't going to like that. I don't really care that much, but yeah. Okay, let's do some cutting. We'll grab this guy. Oh, wait, before we do that, the thickness, the blade is 9CR18, and the thickness behind the edge ranged between 21 and 23 thousandths. So that's not terrible. Let's see what it looks like. Whew. Are you going dull or do you just suck? Let's see here.
I did strop them all up before coming out here. Yeah, I think... So thickness behind the edge is a little bit thicker than I'd prefer for an EDC knife, but it's not so thick that it should be performing the way it feels. I think what we're looking at here is some really, really bad geometry. The blade stock isn't super thick. It's a little bit thick, but not terrible. When we get to the pool noodle test, I'm sure we'll figure out what the issue is. Okay, so let's get our little rope out here. Let's do a little bit of a pull through. That was okay. It cut cleanly, but took a little bit of force. Do some pushes. Okay, it actually crunched through that fairly well for a knife like this. I think that has to do with the robustness of the blade and everything. All right, let's cut our pool noodle. Let's see if we can get a nice, clean, thin slice. Okay, right away, see how it isn't biting into the pool noodle? How it's just pushing it down, just compressing it? It's a bad sign. I think we're looking at some pretty wonky grinding. Yeah, okay, so that did not feel good going through there at all. As you can see, the blade, look at that, went really wonky as it was going through there. Didn't really finish on that side. Let's do a thicker slice. Oh, man. Yeah, the flat grind here just was not done very well. That's not a very satisfying cutter at all. Yikes. All right, let's get back to the table.
And shabam, we are back. So let's go ahead and get into what I'm liking and not liking about this knife. First of all, I think it's a good looking knife. It's very plain, it's very simple, it's nothing that really excites me or anything, but I think it's a good looking knife. You know, the aluminum is nice. Next, the ergos are actually really, really good. We'll get back to ergos here in a little bit, but the jimping up here on the spine is good jimping. It's not anything like super special or unique. In fact, it kind of looks like it wouldn't be that good, but focus here. There we go. But it actually works out just fine. Good jimping. I like that. The rest of the knife, the handle is shaped very well to give you a good solid grip. It's very hand-feeling. The knife is very fat. It's pretty tall. People are going to have mixed opinions on that. We'll come back to that later. But something I always say, when you have a knife that is fat and tall, it fills your hand really, really well, and it feels great. I feel like I'm plenty close to the edge here. The little flipper tab offers some protection from sliding up. Again, my thumb lands in a good spot for that jimping. And overall, the knife feels really good. I don't even really feel the pocket clip that much. So that's awesome. Next thing, the pocket clip works really well. This kind of reminds me of some of the artisan cutlery clips. Especially, I reviewed the, the Jungle recently. And this really kind of looks like that clip, especially with how close together those holes are. It's a little bit weird, but you know what? That's okay. You can see they have a pocket milled out here for the pocket clip so it doesn't rattle around. That's awesome. I like to see that. And the clip itself, maybe a little bit light on the spring tension, but it slides in and out of the pocket really well. It holds fine. That's an advantage of this aluminum, is that the pocket clip slides over really nicely. And I appreciate that the knife is tip-up carry. On a lot of the knives that you buy in your local feed store or sporting goods store and stuff like that, you know, be the tip-down M-Tex. This isn't. So that is pretty nice. Next thing, the thumb stud action on this knife is actually pretty good. Like, really good, actually. The knife has a good detent. Not an amazing detent, but it has a good detent. And when you use the thumb studs, which, by the way, are actually really nice thumb studs, they're very well shaped, they're very well sized. I like the milling on them. And they work great. They're positioned in such a way that you get your thumb in there and the knife fires open reliably 100% of the time. Really great action with the thumb studs. The knife is running on bearings, which, again, if you buy this knife for $9, that's not always something you see for $9. So that's really, really cool. And next thing, I like that it's in 9CR18. That's a great steal, especially for a knife that's this super budget. 9CR is a steel that I like quite a bit. I don't have very many problems with it. It's nice and stainless, holds an edge for a decent while, very easy to sharpen, and decently tough too. So I like this steel quite a bit. As far as the blade goes, it's kind of a mixed bag. The blade is fine. We will say that the blade is fine. The blade shape, this is a great shape for EDC. You have a good tip here, actually a pretty acute tip. But yeah, the blade is fine. So that's everything I like. Let's go into what I don't like. First of all, the aluminum is very slippery. The ergonomics of the knife are such that I don't think that'll be a huge issue, especially when you're locked in here with the jimping on the thumb, but it's definitely pretty slippery, and sometimes when you're deploying it, I do worry about accidentally throwing the knife across the room just because it's so gosh dang slippery. But, there we go. Next thing, the weird little Schrade milling right here in the handle. I'm not sure I'm a big fan of that, but whatever. The lanyard hole, I guess it's positioned pretty well. It's not prioritized over the clip or anything, but I don't know. I just can't really see a lanyard on this knife. Next thing, it's heavy and it's chunky. That's going to be a deal breaker for a lot of people. I don't have an exact weight, but it's pretty hefty. If you were to throw this at someone, they would not have a nice day. And again, pretty fat and chunky. Deal breaker for a lot of people, not for me necessarily, but I have to mention it. Next thing, the flipping action is terrible, but I think it's all due to the flipper tab. So you can get it to flip out, but more often than not, it just kind of farts out of there. And that's not amazing. You have to really, really focus on getting the flipper to work. I don't think the detent is a problem. Like I said, I think it's the flipper tab itself. You can see here how it's sloped down like that and how it's positioned lower than the center line of the pivot. You lose a lot of momentum. Plus, it's super tiny. This blade isn't like huge, but it's not a small blade. It's got some weight behind it. You need some more leverage to get it to swing out. There's no jimping on it, so it's very smooth. You slide off. All in all, the flipper tab is just terrible. And the thumb studs are just a much better way to go. So when I was carrying this, the thumb studs are what I used most. Next, there is some blade play right now. The centering is not that great. I could probably adjust that out. I had to keep adjusting this knife. Maybe put some thread locker in there, but it's worth mentioning. Next, let's talk about the blade. So first of all, this thing is terribly, terribly sharpened. Focus there. Look at the bevel. See how uneven the edge is? Plus, they sharpened up the plunge grind. Flip it over. Same deal. And you can see how the width of the edge, especially right here, you can see it, how it changes. Not sharpened very well at all. I haven't sharpened this myself. In fact, it probably needs it. See here. Okay, there's a couple of spots that are going dull, but actually pretty good. Yeah, just not the most amazing grinding by whoever did this at the factory. Now, as I said in the cutting footage, the thickness behind the edge isn't bad. 21 to 23 thousandths. It's not a laser beam, but it's not terribly bad. However, this knife did not cut super well because of the weird sharpening job. So keep that in mind. And also, it feels like that this flat grind gets very thick very quick. What's next? Oh yes, access to the liner. So the access to the lock bar, they give you a cutout here, which is great, right? But the thing is the lock bar itself, it is literally just, focus. This is what I get for having so much cool stuff in the background. The lock bar itself is literally just part of the liner coming over. They didn't put any jimping on here. They didn't try to round it over. It's just a sharp little thing of steel. And it digs into your thumb quite aggressively. So that's not something that I love to see. There's no lock rock. There's some blade play, but you know what? I bet I could fix that real quick with my tool set. I try not to do any like super hardcore modifications to any of these knives prior to the videos I'm going to be doing on them, just because I wanted to see what someone who maybe isn't super comfortable maintaining their knife would have to deal with. Where did I put my screwdriver? There we go. Okay. Pretty sure this is a T8. Yeah. Tighten that up a little bit. Centering is good. Yeah, that thumb stud action is good. Still just a little bit of blade play. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, I think that pretty much wraps up my likes and dislikes. Not huge lists on either end, but let's go ahead and get into my final conclusions. Final conclusions. Would this be a good pocket knife for someone who's not a knife enthusiast? I'm actually going to say yes, I think so. The ergonomics for me are a really big, really big pro for this knife. The ergonomics are really good, very comfortable. You could do a lot of work with this knife before your hand starts to fatigue. The blade itself, I do not think the blade is bad. If it was sharpened better, it would definitely be better, as you might expect. I'm not sure if I'll sharpen this knife up. I don't really plan on carrying this knife again after these videos are done, but I think the knife has all the trimmings to be a good EDC for just a random person. Of course, there are some things that I think will drive even a non-knife person a little bit nuts. Like this lock bar, how sharp that is. That's not okay. That should not be the way it is. The slippery handles, I think, will be kind of a turnoff. But other than that, honestly, I could see someone walking into Tractor Supply, buying this knife for $10, and being very happy with it. The 9CR18 blade is really impressive. That's a great steel for a beginner. Easy to sharpen, good corrosion resistance, it'll hold an edge decently, and it'll be somewhat resistant to damage. I think it's really good. And so overall, those are my final conclusions. This knife, I think, will be absolutely fine for someone who's not a knife person. If I had this knife before I was a knife person, per se, I think I'd be happy with it. I'm trying to think back to, when I was a teenager. I went through a lot of different knives, and I think this one would have pleased me quite a bit. I think this one would have been nice. As for the longevity of the knife, how long will it be before you wear it down and have to throw it away? Well, I don't know. I do think the aluminum will hold up pretty well. The lock is solid, so I don't think the lock will fail anytime soon. It's locked up at 50% now, but I do think it'll take some time to wear all the way over. The knife itself it feels very solid. The bearings may be damaged depending on where you're using your knife, but overall, not bad. Not bad. So good job, Schrade. We're going to be seeing another Schrade knife on the list in this series, but we're not bringing it out yet. So for now, I've been Gideon. I hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for the next one that's going to be coming out tomorrow. And you know what? We'll give you a sneak peek. It's going to be a Camillus. You might remember this. I did an unboxing for this one back in December of 2021. Anyways, adios. I'll see you in the next one.